What's up, everyone? In this business breakthrough, I sit down with another Tanner. This gentleman is a potential business owner. He reached out to me, really kind of just asking some advice on what type of business to start. We dove into that a little bit, but more so the systems, the mindset, the standards, some of the processes that he should have in place to get off on the right foot. So even if you obviously own a business now, this could be a really good episode for you because what we're really talking about is kind of the best way to get started, which some of us, maybe didn't get off on the right foot, and we're kind of trying to learn those things now. So we hit on a lot of those topics. So check it out. It's a really good episode. The big question you need to ask yourself every day is, do I own a job or do I own a business? And unfortunately, the majority of contractors out there own a job. That's right. They're a slave to their own business. But the other side of the fence is so much greener. It's so much better. And that's when you're finally fully in control of your destiny, your freedom, your time. And that's what Contractor Secrets is about. It's about taking back our time, building a business with systems, standards, values, procedures, putting yourself in the driver's seat. And that's what it's about. So I'm excited. I'm happy to have you here. Let's dive into the Contractor Secrets podcast. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Business Breakthrough. I'm here with Tanner, and this is great because I haven't shared this podcast with another Tanner yet, so I think it's going to be a good one. Little background: I know very little. Tanner reached out to me on Reddit and kind of just gave me a kind of little bit of a synopsis on his situation. So wanting to start a quote-unquote sweaty business, contracting business, doing something, not sure what it is. Currently a police officer, dabbles into a couple other things.
Yeah, I used to be a mechanic.
Yep. So leaning a little bit toward, you said possibly lawn care.
Yeah, that's okay. What I was mostly interested in.
Gotcha. So let's start with any major like outlying questions that you might have in terms of kind of, what direction to head in. I know you still haven't chosen anything yet. So aside from lawn care, why don't we start like maybe anything else that you're potentially thinking of starting?
Just kind of looking at businesses that kind of have a low startup cost right now, just because I don't have a lot to invest.
Sure.
So I know service-based businesses are kind of the best to get into for that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was mostly interested in.
Yeah. So definitely. And that's going to, be the case, and, especially early on. I'll kind of, I'm going to start hitting you with some questions that I have. Have you ever owned a business before?
No. I have not.
Okay. Never owned a business before. Do you have any management experience? Do you have any experience hiring people, anything like that?
My father and my grandfather have both had painting businesses.
Okay.
As they were more like industrial painting, where they would have like assembly lines and paint booths and things like that.
Yeah.
So I have some experience kind of running their shops, but
Gotcha. As
far as running my own and the business side of it, I haven't done that.
I think that, the experience of seeing them run it is still beneficial, and I'm a painting business owner, and a majority of people that listen to this are painting contractors. So probably going to lean a little heavy toward the painting business because I can give you a lot of insight on that. Okay. But either way, it just, any business would be good. We're going to go over a couple points that I wrote down that I wanted to make sure that you lock in before you make a decision.
Okay.
The third question is, where do you live? What state?
I live in Florida.
Oh, you're in Florida. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Me too. Nice. All right. So you're in Florida, central, south, or north?
Central Florida.
Okay, cool. So we're right around the same area. So let me kind of give you an idea of the benefits of a painting business. And I'm going to come from the perspective of three major pillars. Now, you could do this with a vast majority of businesses, but we'll start with these three pillars. The first is questions you need to ask yourself. Number one, can this business be scalable? Okay, right. Because if you're not thinking scalability in the early stages of starting a business, then you're really setting yourself up for a stopping point. And by scalability, I mean essentially, can you grow this business to a point to where you're independent of it?
Right.
And that's kind of a lot of the times I'm kind of trying to reverse the cycle of people that have created businesses and gotten so tied into the actual production aspect of running the business that unfortunately reversing that cycle is kind of like them starting over again. So if we can kind of narrow that mindset out in the beginning, that you're coming in as an owner, operator / CEO who's going to be stepping out of that role of operator,
right.
then you're going to be much happier. And I think that maybe you had a new baby, a new spark of motivation. You probably want to spend a little more time with your family.
Definitely.
So yeah, well, starting a business in the beginning, that's not going to happen. But the idea is that you grow it to a point where
Yeah.
you ultimately own your time. Okay.
Well, that
So,
well, that was one of the points. Like watching my father run his business,
yeah,
he never got to that point where he could kind of step back and take
right.
more like a managerial role. He was
Sure.
always involved and never really got to take vacations or things like that. So
Yeah.
I'd like to build a business where I can have people run it and kind
Yeah.
of, step back a little bit and be able to take vacations and spend some family
Sure.
time.
Yeah, and seeing that grow up, same thing with me. My father was a painter. One thing that maybe you and I differ in terms of that dynamic is your dad. You said something about a shop, so he actually
Yeah,
had a physical location that he had to go to every day.
right.
And I assume that this was maybe 10, 15 years ago, where technology wasn't even close to where it is now in terms of doing virtual estimates and saving him a bunch of time for maybe running to do job quotes. Or I know that you
Yeah,
said it
he
might have been
was he was
industrial. So
he was very old school, so he
okay,
ran everything off of QuickBooks. He didn't have a website. Obviously, he
yeah,
started it in the early '90s,
okay,
pretty much when I was born.
yeah,
So he, it was pretty old school business. But like I said, he never got to the point where he could really be hands off, and
yeah.
he spent a lot of time there. Weekends, holidays, things like that.
Wow.
And like I said, I'm coming at it from a different mindset where I would like to put people in charge that can run the business while I'm not there.
Yeah, and one thing that I would say is that again, it doesn't really matter the business. It could be painting. It could be, I would say that there's categories of business. Like let's kind of dive into that for a second. So if you were to do an HVAC business, that's more of like a quick service type of business. That's multiple. You're dealing with multiple people in one day, right? Appointment based. Hey,
Right.
come service this, come fix this. And then you have lawn care and maintenance, which again is that rapid scheduling. You need to do 10 yards in a day to make, $400 for that day. And then same deal with pressure washing in some cases where you have to do 5 or 6 houses in a day.
Right.
Painting, granite, flooring, let me think, roofing, those four just in that category. These are what I call pipeline businesses. So essentially the person has to start off with an inquiry, and then they get a presentation, and then they go through various channels to actually lock in the job. And then that job has a set date. And then that set date, obviously once that's done, you move them through the pipeline, and then you probably won't service them again for another 4 to 5 years, unless they do the inside of the house, if you're an exterior painter, if that makes sense. So
Right.
you do kind of have to narrow down that aspect of like, what it is that you want to do. And personally, in my honest opinion, the latter, the one that I just described, is going to be a better option. And if you're thinking lawn care, there is a category of lawn care, and that would be landscaping
Okay.
that falls within that pipeline type job, type profession. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Right.
you know so ultimately the idea is, and we talk about scalability. So that's the first that's number one in our direction of where we're heading. the
Definitely.
second the second thing that I would say is very, very important is ease of employee acquisition. Okay. And this starts off when that foundation is, I'm going to scale this thing to get me out of the business. I'm
Hmm.
going to get to a point where I have team roles. I have, systems, processes, standards in place. How hard is it for me to bring on somebody to do this actual job? And you think about it, if you were a drywall contractor, that level of skill to be a drywall contractor is very high.
Right.
If you were let's say a flooring contractor, getting quality people to come in and install. I see you got some nice tile floors there, man. That's not easy work. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? You need to have somebody that knows angles and knows how to cut, right?
Yeah.
Landscaping, if you get people that want pavers installed, right? So you're thinking, dude, so these are some things that you should think about. How hard is it going to be for me to plug someone into the system? Let me tell you about the painting business, okay? Painting business is straight application. In other words, you do not have to alter the surface or structure. When you
Right.
don't have to alter a surface or structure, that immediately lowers the bar in terms of skill set necessary to do the job, do the task. Okay, so that's why I'm
Okay.
a huge fan of the painting business, because not only do I have a massive pool of potential customers and clients, on the flip side, I have a massive pool of potential employees and workers that don't need a high level of skill to be plugged into our system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
And
so
that's when I was looking for a business. That was kind of the key points I was looking for, is something that's that has scalability to it, and something where it's not really hard to train somebody to do it. Because with my father's business, he kind of had a hard time hiring people because the painting that he was doing was very technical.
Right.
So it was hard to get employees. He basically had one or two painters for the lifetime of his business, where
Sure.
he wasn't able to replace them.
Right.
Granted, when they would step back and take breaks, he would kind of jump in and do the work. But obviously, since he was kind of running the different side of it, he kind of lost the skill set that he had even.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the tough part with having a business like that.
Absolutely. And that's why that's why in the order of operations here is scalability. And then can I bring on people? Because really what I'm trying to help you do is narrow down a profession.
Right.
And ultimately, doing so is what the good news is that you're not coming off of the profession and saying, I want to start a business in this profession. Like, you're really coming out from a business standpoint of which profession is going to be the most profitable, which profession is not going to require me to, devote my entire life to this profession, and what profession is in high demand and has a good labor pool for me to because the whole purpose of a business owner is to meet supply with demand. That's your job.
Right.
You're a middleman at that point. All you're doing is finding the need and filling it.
That's another question I had for you was, how do you determine like the demand for a certain service or, a product or something like that?
It's a good question. There's two ways. You can either create the demand through a certain marketing campaigns, marketing channels. You can make it a desirable demand. Number two, market research. I think, we all know that if the economy is doing well and we're in the trades, then people are going to want their house maintained,
Right.
essentially. We know that if there's a recession in our economy, then we know that the trades usually take a hit, but also what's really interesting is though that, you have need-based and you have want-based desires when it comes to this sort of thing. So
Right.
for example, in the painting business, we service need-based and want-based. We're just not a desire. We're not just a commodity. There's people that move into their houses and really can't get settled in until the walls are painted.
Right.
We provide a service that helps people get a quicker return on their investment. So that's the beauty of it, is that we sort of do have a hedge against a recession in that regard, because we do have some sort of need base. Like, I'll give you another example. A roofing company is highly need based. I mean, it doesn't matter what's going on. If there's a hole in your roof, you can't really live. Now, I know that painting isn't going to be to that scale and that level, but if you live in an HOA community and you have an HOA, whether the economy's doing well or not, HOA is still going to fine you if your house looks like crap.
Oh yeah.
So the idea is, in any case, the baseline is that you do want to make sure that you're fulfilling a need and not just I would say a commodity. Now, let me ask you a question. If you were a granite installation company, would you say that that's leaning more toward need or want?
I guess it depends on the customer, because some might look at it as a need, some might look at it as a want.
Well, let's paint the picture of a recession.
Definitely a need in that.
Or definitely a want, you mean?
Oh yeah, a want. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is, like, thinking about what type of business to start. Again, if that happens, which could totally happen, we don't know. If it does happen, then you ultimately have a business that people really don't need as much as they would if they were moving into a house. They know that the walls are disgusting, or if they're trying to sell their house and they want to make more money, painting it is one of the number one things you do.
Definitely.
Painting and then flooring, those two, and then granite countertops and kitchen would probably fall in line after that. So I'm just giving you an idea of, it may be 80% need, 20% want. I'm just saying that it leans a little more heavily toward need. So when you're making a decision, that's something to consider.
Okay.
Do you have any questions at this point?
No, basically these are all things that I've had in my mind, doing all the research and stuff like that. Obviously I followed all of your Reddit posts.
Thank you very much. I wrote a lot of stuff there, man. So that means a lot.
Yeah. Well, definitely the biggest thing that I was interested in is the hiring process, because obviously a lot of people that start sweaty businesses have a tough time hiring either qualified people or people with good backgrounds and stuff like that. Somebody that they could trust with their business,
Right.
So that post was really eye-opening for me.
Yeah. The hiring process, is really just, it's interesting that hiring is the most important thing that you'll ever do in your business. If you go to a great restaurant and The restaurant could be amazing and the food could be amazing, but if your server sucks, then the experience is lost. And it's the same thing. If you have people that do amazing work, but their attitudes are poor and they're not friendly and they don't create a fun environment, it doesn't matter. The people,
Right.
so for me, I understand in the residential industry, that really matters. And I think that you are leaning more toward the residential industry more than any sort of commercial or anything, because the residential industry is, where the money's at. That's
Right.
the belief. I know that you could paint a Walmart and make $200,000, but ultimately the time that it takes to acquire that is the same time that it would
Right.
take to paint X amount of jobs. That's just the way I see it. So we're
Well,
big on residential.
I think with the current economy, and everything that's going on, I think residential is, like you said, there's more money in that now because of the commercial is taking such a hit.
It is.
With the economy and everything.
Yeah, and one thing that I always thought that, in the beginning, I honestly thought this when the pandemic came, like, man, we're going to be screwed painting. Who's going to want painting done? When people spend time in their house and they see it and they're looking at it, you do. I mean, we're busier than we've been before the pandemic, and it's great because we're able to survive, and in business, that's the secret, the goal.
Definitely.
So the hiring process. So essentially, kind of going to give you some insight on the way that I started my business, because maybe this is the direction you'll go.
Okay.
Number one, you need to be doing the work in the beginning. You need to be doing everything. I mean, I'm talking, you need to be if you do a profession that you don't know how to do, then you need to do it. I mean, just learn it, and I'm a big proponent of, if you own a restaurant and you don't know how to cook, ultimately, if the cook doesn't show up, your customers don't get served. Sometimes as the owner, you got to jump in the kitchen, and your job is to prevent that from happening.
Right.
You don't want to ever leave that up to chance. So for me, learn the skill that it is that you're going to be starting a business on. That's going to be number one.
Okay.
Number two, identify team roles off the bat. What you want to be looking for is somebody with way more skill than you at this profession, which would be almost anybody, chances are, because you've never done the profession. So you want to find somebody that you can sell the vision to. And essentially that's what you are. You have to be a salesperson, not only to your customers, but to your employees. And the word salesperson doesn't mean to be, you're not sleazy and you're not manipulating anybody. I'm just saying you have to sell them on the idea to work for you instead of someone else.
Right.
And that's the reality of it. So when you have that person that that can do the job well, and then you put them through the hiring process, that you filter them out to be a good person, from there you work side by side with that person, and you learn the dynamics of a paint job. And I think the best thing you can do is be very honest and say, look, man, I'm a businessman, but I want to learn the trade. I'm going to work side by side with you. I'd love for you to teach me, and I think you'll gain a lot of respect with that person if it's the right person.
Absolutely.
And even when you sell jobs, you should be telling people that you just started out, definitely bring up that you're law enforcement or you're and definitely. I mean, these things, the character is what people buy, and they trust that in this industry because it's so rare. That's kind of where I'm going with that. So hiring process, you just the first person you should hire is somebody with A-level skill that can do almost anything, good character. Now, that's to me a unicorn, but it can be done. It can be done, especially now. There's a lot of guys that are working on their own that are having trouble. They're those owner operators. Okay, those are the guys that really don't know how to run a business. They just kind of survive by word of mouth. Every so often, man, they do a quick peek on Craigslist, a quick peek on Indeed, for that stability. And around the holidays is when that stability starts creeping, man. Like, I can't get people to, around this time, first few weeks of January. So it's a great time to scoop a high quality person up.
Okay.
But we still need to figure out what type of profession you need to do. That's going to be key. So what are you leaning towards?
Like I said, I'm leaning towards lawn care just because right now I have all the equipment available to me.
Okay.
I would like to start eventually, like I said, my own mechanic shop. That's really like the goal I want to get to.
Okay.
Obviously, with all the equipment that you have to have, I do have a lot of tools myself, but there's other equipment that you have to purchase for that business.
Yep.
Obviously, it will require a lot of startup capital. So that's why I said I was leaning towards the lawn care business, because that's kind of a business I can start and, acquire customers, go around and just do great work, and through word of mouth, hopefully gain more customers and, build the business that way.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I love about the lawn care business. Okay. The lawn care business is phenomenal to sell. Like, it's one of the most sellable businesses, because ultimately you're pretty much building a book of business that can easily be transferred to another individual. I mean, the best, right? Because these are returning customers. These are people that are going to call you back. These are people that every 2 weeks, I mean, and the standard of the lawn care business is so poor in the residential industry that, you know, I mean, there's just not enough quality people that could do lawn care. The best lawn care companies are taking on the commercial work, the big jobs, the schools, the retirement communities, the parks, like, so that vast majority. So don't get intimidated. I don't know if you have, but there's plenty of room for you in this business.
Okay.
One thing that I will say is that this is a business that eventually, in my opinion, within the next 5 or 10 years will be automated. I mean, with robots cutting grass, man, it's going to be the norm, I think. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, it's something that can be automated. Maybe not everybody will buy a robot, but if it becomes affordable, I will.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I was interested in was actually doing like epoxy floorings, like garage floor coatings.
Absolutely. I've done.
Oh, you have?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
So one thing about epoxy flooring, I think that's a great niche to get into, man. I really do.
Okay.
I think it's something that you can do and learn and get really good at. And obviously it's scalable. It checks all my boxes, honestly. It really does. It's a specialty. So you get to have that customer experience. I mean, the end results are amazing. Couple major points about that. Number one, you want to get a grinder, a floor grinder, if you're going to do epoxy flooring. Don't make the mistake I did of thinking I could just acid wash everything, and it peels, it blisters. You run into, and it's just so friggin' hard to repair. I ruined someone's garage floor once. It was a complete disaster. I went down that road. I actually was trying to. I was going to set up a side business of epoxy, and I learned that I'm just good at what I'm good at, man. We paint houses, but that's the one piece of advice I could give you. You can finance the machine. I think Sherwin-Williams will finance it for you. It's $7,000 to $9,000. So it's a big boy. But let me tell you something. You have that machine, you're immediately light years away from your competition. And what's really cool is that if you go to Sherwin-Williams and you tell them, hey, I'm looking to start an epoxy business, can you get me in touch with your epoxy representative who does those machines? They will actually do a training for you for free on that machine to try to sell it to you. So they'll show you how to use it. They'll let you use it. They'll bring it in the back. They'll actually grind up some epoxy. So you can actually get free training on this, dude, from the Sherwin-Williams rep, bro. You go there and you tell them, hey, I want to start an epoxy business. Can I talk to the representative, the sales rep? Dude, they'll give you free products to try. They'll teach you how to apply the coating because they want you to buy it, you know, and give to your customers. And then they'll touch base. Then they'll get you involved with the representative to grind the floors. So, I mean, that's a killer business that I don't think there's another trade that you'll get that sort of concierge service to start right off the bat. And, you know, if you think $9,000 over the course of, I think it's a 5-year loan on it, you're paying $200 a month for the grinder. But what I would do is I would get a van, throw that grinder in there, you know, and I would hire somebody, just a painter, to work alongside me and just go through the trainings with that person and literally train him up to be an epoxy flooring specialist. One thing that I would say is that you always want to have 2 guys on it because a lot of the epoxy coatings are time sensitive. So you need to make sure that they're able to work together without it during, you know, I've done an 2-car epoxy garage floor by myself once, and I almost took too long to where like it was like drying in the bucket. It was a disaster. I've made every mistake you can think of, but I'm here to report the good news of giving you some good insight on how to avoid them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm
excited about that. I mean, the long term, but you know, if you go the epoxy route, man, then I think that would be cool, man. I really do.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the route I was leaning more towards because, like I said, I like cars and garages and things like that.
Your mechanic shop when you're done.
Definitely. Yep. So
there's 2 types of epoxy. You have 100% solids epoxy. Well, there's probably 100 types of epoxy, but these are the 2 that you'll probably be dealing with. It's called 100% solids, and then you have a water-based epoxy. 100% solids is the money stuff, man. That stuff is amazing. If you do some research, you could really dive into, you know, they'll mail you samples for free. Like you could really, you know, you do your own garage.
Yeah.
or do your grandmom's or something before you ruin yours. If you need, then your grandma will
Okay.
forgive you.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research, so I know, the
Okay, cool.
diamond grinding, that's the most important step
Yeah,
to it. Obviously the prep work, as you know, with painting, it's really important to get
yeah,
a solid adhesion to it.
yeah,
So,
yep. So they have polyaspartic coating. So you really kind of just narrow down what works for you, man. You do it a bunch, and that doesn't just have to be garage floors. You can extend out to pool deck patios. You can extend out to porches and different things like that. So big business, great margins. Really, although it is one of those, wants rather than needs,
right.
you could scale it pretty quickly, and you only need a couple employees to start making some good money. If you think
Okay.
about it, the average epoxy garage floor is 15 to $2,000. If you schedule it right, you could probably do 3 to 4 in a week. Because it's you can't do it all in one day in most cases. You have to like grind the floor up, vacuum it, prepare it. Apply the first coat. Sometimes it's a clear coat. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of the next steps for you, you filed an LLC. Have you done anything like that?
No, I haven't. I haven't started an LLC or anything, right like that. I just have some domains that are registered
Okay.
from some like business names that I wanted to start.
Okay.
But as far as like actually registering a business, I haven't gone as far as that process.
Any business name you want to share that's at the top of the list? Any
Well,
clever names come up?
uh, kind of. I mean, I kind of wanted to go in like my father's footsteps. So his business had the word Protect in it.
Nice.
So kind of like Protect finishing. That's kind of like the
Yeah.
route I'd like to go.
Yeah, I like that. Protect finishing, protect your floors. So if you do
Yeah.
epoxies, man, that's a brilliant name, and I think it'll take off. I really do. It has a lot of I don't know, a lot of professionalism tied to Protect, and there's actually a paint product called Protect Floor Coatings. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Wow.
so that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. Well, my dad actually had a business account too with Sherman-Williams, so
Okay.
I'm sure if I go there, and talk to them about the coatings, they'd be able to help me out with that.
So let's talk startup, because I think that's going to be, money, finances. You just had a baby, so I know you want to save as much as you can. When I first
Right.
started my business, I financed every single thing with Sherman-Williams at 0%. So
Wow.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that I assume you have pretty good credit.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good
So,
credit.
I mean, dude, they'll give you a credit line off the bat, I think, for like $3,000 to $5,000, depending, and you don't have to pay it for 30 days. Now, obviously, the idea would be is that you sell a job in 30 days, or obviously, the whole thing about this business and painting is you're not going to buy products unless you sell a job. So you're not going to owe money unless you bring in money. Do you have any questions on like acquiring customers?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what's the best avenue to kind of like advertise your business? I mean, I know there's Craigslist and Facebook and things like that, but I was wondering like what works for you.
Yeah. So I use this analogy a lot, man. One thing that I always say is like, leads and marketing is kind of like investing in stocks. And you never want just one stock. The best advice you're going to get from a financial advisor is to diversify.
Right.
Because, some lead generation services suck. Some, don't bring in, and you just never want to be at the mercy of one. So essentially you have two types of leads. You have organic and you have paid. Organic, your website, although your website can look amazing, if no one can get there, if there's no traffic going to your website, then your website's worthless. So
Right.
what we want to do is want to drive traffic there. One of the number one places that drives traffic to a website is Google. So Google has 3 different types of, ways that you could get traffic to be driven to you. And I'm sure you know them all and you've heard of them. One would be, obviously Google Ads. 2 would be the map pack, and then number 3 would be SEO. So I don't really believe in SEO anymore, especially for contractors, specifically speaking, because if you just Google painter in your area, you're going to see 8 to 10 SEO listings of these massive lead generation companies, Angie's List, Home Advisor. It's very rare to beat them anymore because they just have a full-time team devoted to SEO for their websites, and Google just puts out the best search ranking. You're not going to compete with them unless you hire somebody to do that. And number 2, the market really doesn't look at blog posts before they call a contractor, right? So if you needed a contractor, are you going to scroll all the way down to read what he thinks the 5 best, paint coatings are, and so you're going to look at the map pack or you're going to look at the ad. So those two are where I'd focus, right? So if you have the map pack, the goal is to get as many reviews on Google as possible. I
Okay.
from the start, I have the most reviews of any painting company in my area. Okay.
Wow.
And essentially, just off of that, we get people just trust us. Oh, most reviews, 5 stars, cool. Call them Premium Painting. Super easy, right? And then the Google ads I did in the beginning. Again, once I got the top rating on Google for the map, I didn't have to spend money on the ads anymore.
Okay.
I feel like naturally people see that as kind of spammy unless they're, it's kind of spammy up top on Google. So they see the majority of people go to the map and see their local companies and then choose from there. So that would be a major focus is Google for you in the beginning. Now, let's talk paid real quick. Depends on what you do, bro. I mean, honestly, if you go lawn care, you could really I would go right to property managers. I would go right to, and this isn't really in the paid category. This is like your boots on the ground. But I would get into the communities, HOAs, let them know that, introduce yourself, all that stuff. But if you're in the epoxies, if you're going the paint route, or you're going one of those pipeline contracting businesses, you're probably going to want to go with like Home Advisor, Angie's List, Thumbtack. If the value of your service is greater than $1,000, paying per lead is worth it. That's kind of my rule of thumb. Now, I have friends that have pressure washing businesses. They don't see as much value in paying per lead because the cost of their services is only like $150, $100, $200.
Right.
So between that and the driving and paying an employee, they're making $50 on washing a house. That's not worth it. But if you're shooting for $1,500, almost $3,000 on an epoxy, that's worth it to spend, $100 on a lead. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think we've covered a little bit of production. We've covered some marketing. A little bit of licensing in Florida is pretty lenient. Depends on what county you're in. For painting and lawn care, I think you just need a pulse. and then you're really, it's just, in sales. Now, do you have any sales experience, any customer service experience?
Not directly. Obviously, when I was like a mechanic before, you kind of have to sell the job.
True.
So I do in that sort of aspect. But as far as like a direct sale, as like a salesperson, I haven't worked a job like that before.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of sales, like, when you own a business, you just got to wear all the hats. You got to wear your production hat, and then you got to wear your administrative answering the phone hat, and then you got to wear your marketing hat, and then you got to wear your sales hat. And then the idea is to get help and get people to wear those hats for you so you can wear the dad hat at home. This is my dad hat, so, ultimately, the sales process really is just the better your ability to convert those leads into paying customers is going to minimize how much you spend on your marketing, right? Because if you have jobs, you don't need to buy leads or you don't need to advertise, so, once you figure out what it is that you do, being able to sell that and convey your message is going to be obviously key. So I'll give you kind of a quick tip on paid leads and any sort of lead services that you purchase. If you do go that route, you want to be the first one to call, and then you want to call often and frequently until either they tell you that they're not interested or they block your number. I mean, that's just how the game works, because usually with these companies, you're sharing that lead with other epoxy companies, assuming that you go that route, just as an example. Okay. And that's going to be the key. And then getting in the house and doing the presentation is a whole nother story. Hopefully I have an opportunity to help you with that if you go that route in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate all the information. I mean, it's been some really good knowledge.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. I mean, it's a lot. Did you get a logo yet?
Or working on it.
Yeah, working on it. We need a business first. Yeah. So I think once you figure out that. So what's the time frame and when you want to jump out and start the thing?
I'd like to start as soon as possible because, like I said, right now I'm on a break from work until basically February. So I kind of have a good, almost 2 months where I can start a business and hopefully get it off the ground, get some customers, and get everything started before I go back to work. Yeah. The good thing about my job is I think I told you in the post or the message that I work 15 days out of the month. So I have plenty of free days where I can run my business. And I have basically more free time than somebody that works like 5 days a
Yeah,
week.
that's very
So
true. That's very true. And I yeah. So you didn't say house painting. I think you should add that to your list. I think house painting is the best business you could start, honestly. And
okay,
in terms of the things that I said in the beginning, in terms of ease of entry for employees, it's at the top.
okay,
Scalability, it's at the top. It's one of the best businesses in the world. It's the only
yeah,
contracting business that you can sell the same value on the outside or greater as you can in the inside. So you see your walls. So I could sell you your walls, your trim, your ceiling, your doors, your closets on the inside. Then I can go outside. I could sell your walls, your trim, your soffits and fascia, your gutters. So there's so much opportunity to sell at the scale,
definitely.
so that's kind of why I'm really interested in the painting business. But I think that'll do it for today, man. If you have any other outlying questions.
I was just curious if you know, because you're in Central Florida
I
too,
am.
do you know any other like industries that are kind of in like high demand right now?
Really, I mean, everyone's moving here. So,
Right.
are you near Orlando or are you near Ocala?
I'm closer to the Tampa area
Closer to the
than,
Tampa area? Okay.
yeah,
So, I mean, honestly, the influx of people moving here is just insane. Really,
right.
look, even if that wasn't the case, bro, even if it wasn't the case, people aren't buying your service. They're buying you. And you have to understand that the vast majority, maybe 90% of homeowners are sick and tired of the poor customer service, the poor workmanship. They've either
Yep.
heard of a poor experience, either have gotten taken advantage of. I mean, the list goes on, right? So you're selling you. And ultimately, if you go in with that mentality, there's no competition for you. There is anyone with a pulse and that lives inside of a building with four walls is your customer. So it's not necessarily like what's in the most demand. It's, can you be there for when the demand is in need of the service? Are you going to be visible? And that's the name of the game in whatever business that you start, in whatever contracting business you start. That's the name of the game.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's like I said, that's some really good information. Yeah, like I was telling you before too, there's a lot of new developments going up by me, and I know, like I said, I was kind of leaning towards the epoxy flooring because I know that the developers, they don't coat the garage floors or anything.
A lot of
So
them
like,
offer it.
oh, they
A
do
lot of
offer
them
it?
offer it to the customers. Yes. So
Oh,
they're
okay.
not stupid, man. They know that
Yeah.
they will add on. Usually it's just at that point they're so done with dealing with the builder that they're just like, no, we just want to move in our house. No more delays. But majority of the people who have a need for that service will take advantage of it with the builder. But one thing that I thought of, if I were to go that route, the property appraiser website will give you
Hmm.
anyone's information that just bought a house. So you get with a good direct mailing company. I don't knock direct mailing, even though we're in the 21st century. Everything is, obviously digital, but the direct
Right.
mailing company, for anyone that purchases a house, they know how to target them. That would be a good little niche to advertise to those those new homeowners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, you have next door, man. I mean, there's just so many things that, it's not so much like, the service you're going to provide is going to be excellent. It's, can you be there? And again, that's my big point, is, can you be the person they call? And if if you have X amount of opportunities in a week's time, people interested in your service, you're going to get X amount of sales. And the whole purpose of your sales process is to increase that number.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if I do like 20 estimates in a week, there's a certain amount of sales I'm going to hit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Regardless, and the goal would be to just increase that.
Okay.
Did that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
cool, man. Well, I think we should jump on again once you figure out what it is you're going to be doing, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it too, man. Thank you.
All right. Hey, I just want to take a second to thank you for joining me here on the Contractor Secrets podcast. I'm just going to take this opportunity to let you know that my passion is coaching people, helping people. I've changed my Instagram name to @contractorcoach. And I did that because that is my passion. I want to help you. So please reach out to me. If you have an issue going on in your business, send me an email. Find me on Instagram, message me, and let's do a breakthrough session. I want to work through your problems in your business to help you get to that next level. And one thing that I always say is this, the difference between those that get over the humps and the hurdles in business is just a change in perspective. And that's what I plan to offer you. So get with me, message me, allow me to help you take your business to the next level.